Welcome to another episode of ZTech Almanac, and today I want to show you a quick video of how to disassemble and apply thermal paste and extra thermal coupling for the GeForce RTX 3090 GPU. Now, this GPU is really fast, but it runs hot. Especially runs hot if you're running a high resolution, graphics or mining on it. So it has been measured that the memory controllers and the memory themselves run up to 110 degrees Celsius, which is really high, really dangerous, and it can shorten the life of the GPU. So if you're going to use this for mining especially, then you want to apply some of these extra safety thermal couplings that we're going to do today. So I'm going to use this high performance thermal paste kit for the GPU itself. This is actually really good and has a really high thermal conductivity. And I'm going to use these Fuji Poly thermal tapes on the memory chips. And this is again very high conductivity, thermal conductivity. And it's pretty thick. It's 1.5 millimeters thick. You want to have it pretty thick to make sure that it is, it has enough mechanical pressure. Okay, I have a couple of tools here laid out. So important thing is a couple of screwdrivers, but what's needed is this torque screw. I think it's a T6. That's what it is, and so we'll use that. And so I might fumble a little bit. It's not like I've taken this apart 50 times and I'm just putting it back in. This is my first time taking it apart, so you'll experience the joys and the frustrations of taking this thing apart. Okay, well, let's see. Let's open it up here. Take this off and these guys off. And I did open it before, but I haven't taken it apart. So it has a very nice box, which is always nice. So there it is. And then, you're gonna start looking at this and say, oh well, how do I take it apart? Like, I don't know what's going on. Honestly, just be honest, I did watch some videos on this. I did read some websites, make sure that I'm not starting completely 100% fresh of how to take this apart. So the first thing that needs to be done is that you just take a little bit of tape here. Some of these things, some of the areas here are magnetically kind of held together with just magnets, right? So I just kind of have the tape there, lift that a little bit, and get in there with a little bit of screwdriver to just to take that off. So that's just magnetic, comes off. And then the other thing, just use the tape for, is that there's little tiny magnets here, and then they just come off like that. So basically these things come out, and these are just little kind of like screw covers, right? There's little just screws underneath there that hold everything together, right? So that's it. So I have those kind of saved there. It's kind of neat because it just sticks to the tape there. So next thing is to just use one of these screwdrivers to start taking these screws out, and I'll do that. And then thing to watch out for is that I have just this T6 torque screw head, and there's a couple of T6 screws there that will come out later. So just make sure that we know where those are here. There's two of them there. All right. Okay, so what I've done is unscrewed these screws. These ended up being T5s, these four here. And then I unscrewed these screws there. They're just Phillips. And then next step here is to remove this area here, this plate. And you'll see here that there's some thermal tape stuck on this side and that side, so which will clean up nicely before we put everything back in. So now we have, I guess, the bottom of the GPU completely off. And then next step here is going to be taking off these screws here. And I see that there's a screw here, so kind of remove this little area here just to get the motherboard loose. And I see some ribbon connectors here, a wire here, another ribbon there. So get those disconnected. Of course, at my age, I need a magnifying glass to see all that. So, I'll be looking at it kind of closely, make sure I don't mess up anything there. But yeah, I think I think other than that, looks fairly clean here. Nothing unusual. So yeah. One note about the screws is that they kind of, from distance, they look a little deceiving. They are a variety of Torx screws, ranging from T5 to T7. So I had to play around with my Torx screw heads here to kind of get some of these other screws out. Okay, so one thing I want to show you is removing these little ribbon wires, and hopefully I'm zoomed in enough there. To remove them, there's a little plastic flip that you need to flip up on the back here, and once that's flipped up, it basically releases the ribbon, and you should be able to pull that out. Just pull it out just like that. So that's how that goes, and it goes in the same way. Just push it back in and flip that plastic flip on the back, and it's done. Okay, so now it's time to take the PCB out. I took the two ribbon wires out here and there, and but I left this little, I think that's an LED wire right there. I left that plugged in. I tried to take it out. It's just a little finicky plastic plug. So plus the wire's long enough, so we can just leave that plugged in and just carefully lift out the PCB this way. So basically, I already jiggered it a little bit to kind of unstick it from the other side of the PCB here. So yeah, so there we are. We're careful with that wire there, and that's what it is. So just to kind of fit it on the camera here. So we have all the thermal compounds here, which will beef up. We'll also clean up the existing thermal paste off the GPU and put our new really good one there. And then, same thing here. We will clean this up, and then basically put extra thermal compounds on all these chips everywhere. So it's going to be full. I mean, not thermal compounds, but thermal strips on all these chips here. Okay, so here's what it looks like. I haven't removed these yet, but I'm going to show you, I cleaned the GPU thermal paste off with some alcohol. So very clean there. And also the GPU itself, clean it off so that it's nice and shiny. There's a tiny bit of the old one left on the side, and that's okay. It's just, what's important is that the surface of it is clean and shiny so that the new compound can go on there. And also cleaned a little bit on this side, the memories, which they're gonna get the new thermal tape there. What else? Yeah, and I blew a little bit everything away because some of this compound is kind of brittle, or it kind of falls apart. It's not brittle, but it can fall apart, this thermal tape that they use. So I'm gonna blow things off of there so you don't have these messy leftovers, from these guys there. So I'm likely not going to change all of them. I'm going to change the main memory one. So kind of looking on this side. So memory chips are these chips that are basically around the GPU. So I will put the new really good thermal tape on those, and then we'll leave the old one on these row of chips on both sides there. So those are a little further away. The rule of thumb here is that the closer things are to the GPU, the faster they are, the faster interconnect or bus that they have, and the hotter they're likely going to get. I don't know if that's actually always true, but often you'll see the fastest memories or interconnects placed really close to the GPU. So you want to make sure that those are well protected. And let me show you how I'm applying the thermal paste here. So this is the thermal paste XTM50 here. I already put down the stencil. Hopefully this is visible. So just gonna go a little bit, and too much is okay, right? We don't have to be chintzy with this thing, right? It's just gonna go like a straight line here. At least start with that. And the reason I have the stencil is that I can smudge it and not have to worry about it too much, right? So I can just start applying it freely, right? So you can see that that's clearly not enough. So just keep going, applying some more paste and continue, just adding more as you go, right? Make sure you get an even coverage, especially areas where in the corners and areas like that. And then use the applicator to apply that nicely and cover that GPU basically from corner to corner. So I'll do this for a little bit while here. I won't bore you through the whole process, but see, it's getting some nicer coverage here. So yeah, so that's how you apply it. Thick is nice and good. Some people just put a dab on there in the middle and just kind of stick the heatsink on there. Yes, the pressure will spread that out, but you don't know how even it's going to be, right? So you're going to have potentially corners of the GPU left uncovered, and that's just not good, especially with a high performance card like this. Okay, it's ready to put back together. So I added the tape here. The paste on the GPU is good, nice and even there. This memory chip here, I didn't add the tape directly on it because it's so close to the edge of the heatsink here where the screw goes. So instead I added it here. And really there's no real right way or wrong way of adding the tape on this side or that side, as long as it's added somewhere. So time to just kind of flip this over and watching out for that LED wire, which is sort of the tricky one. So just get that in there nice, and there you go. And now we just have to put all the screws back in. So here's the back of the card completed with all the thermal tape. You can see that I put the high efficiency tape that I have, this gray one, mostly over the memories, and a little bit on the sides here. And then I reused their existing white tape here on some of the other areas. And really the goal here in the back is not so much of heat dissipation, because the back cover is very thin, so really this isn't much of a heat sink. But what it does help with is when you put the back cover back on, it applies mechanical force to the whole GPU, and so also the bottom pads will have just that much pressure on them, so they're going to be better conducting. Anyway, I was going to say, I forgot to mention, this tape is 17 watts per MK, so it's I think it's the top or one of the top best conducting thermal conducting tapes. And I don't know what Nvidia uses, what the white stuff is, but I'm assuming it's also pretty good. But I would be surprised if it was 17 watts per MK. So, well, that's it. Everything goes back on now, and the GPU should be ready to go. And we're done. So, put back all the screws here on the cover and the magnetic covers on top of right here, this triangle shape here, plus the tiny little magnetic screw covers, these four here. These are kind of finicky. They don't fit exactly as you think they would, because the corner one here is a tiny bit different than the one that goes here. So, if they don't fit, then just swap them and they should fit just fine. But yeah, now it's ready to be tested, and we'll see in a future video how this thing performs with hashing and graphics. And I'm going to be putting together a PC using this GPU, so we'll check it out. And if it doesn't work or if it overheats, then it comes apart again, and double make sure that all the thermal tape is there tightly. Sometimes, of course, when you take something like this apart and put it back together, the pressure may not apply evenly everywhere. So I kind of press it down, make sure that that thermal tape on both sides, both on top side and bottom side, is making really good contrast, right? So it does need a little bit of pressure to make that contact, because if it's floating in the air and there's just maybe a tenth of a millimeter gap there, that's just not going to thermally conduct there. So anyway, well, thanks for watching, and see you next time.